I think leadership is not, it's not about me, because you cannot lead if there is no one following. So it's more about the ones that you are leading than it is about you. It takes a lot of selflessness to lead. So it becomes zero about yourself and more about the people that you are given the responsibility to lead.
Hey everyone, well, welcome back to the Life and Leadership Podcast. I am so glad that you're here. Now, if you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with a friend so we can see more people growing in their leadership potential. Well, today, I'm so fired up to chat with public servant Faith Mdhluli. Now, Faith is a 2023 Mandela Washington Fellowship recipient, and she holds a Master's of Business Administration from the University of East, a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Engineering from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and a Master's in Chemical Engineering from the University of the Witwatersrand. Now, Faith is the CEO and founder of Faithful Heart, Helpful Hands, a foundation focusing on community development and creating an environment for girls in rural areas to succeed. You can tell this chick's done a lot. So what we're going to do, we're going to dive right into this conversation. I know you're going to love it. So Faith, hello, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you, Christine?
Awesome. I am so excited to speak to someone with an accent slightly different to mine.
Wonderful. Me too.
Okay, you have to tell me, who has the better accent, the Australians or the South Africans?
The South African accent is very interesting because you will not find 10 South Africans who speak the same. In Australia, you go in with one accent and it's Australian. But in South Africa, there's maybe 20 something different English accents, which is interesting.
Very much so. Now, Faith, you'll be new to our listeners, and I so want them to know. Firstly, tell me, where are you speaking to us from? You have to explain where in South Africa you are right now.
Okay, so I am in a town called Nelspruit. It's about 3.5 hours, if you're a good driver, from Johannesburg. It's where the Kruger National Park is. It's the greenest part of the country. I feel the most beautiful part of the country. So that's where I am.
I have to say, it's pretty stunning. Now, have you been to Kruger National Park?
Multiple times, yes. Multiple times.
It's stunning, stunning. Okay, so tell us a little bit. I'm just so fascinated. We're going to glean so much from you. Obviously, this is a life and leadership podcast, so I am very excited to just understand your whole leadership journey. Tell us a little bit about what you do, because I know you're both involved in public service and you're also involved, you've started a nonprofit. So tell us a little bit about both.
So I started working straight out of school. I think I finished my last exam was in November. In February, I started working as an engineer in training. And a few years later, by God's grace, I became a district engineer. So I was given a district to head. Then a few months later, things kind of sort of happened. And I found myself acting as a director, which means then I headed engineering services. There was lead care, there's disaster risk management, there's land use management. So that's 4 programs. I acted, I think, for about a couple of years. And then I was permanently appointed as director for those 4 programs. That's what I do as my 9 to 5. Then after that, God gave me something that I feel has been my purpose all along. So I started a foundation called Faithful Heart, Helpful Hands. It's basically focusing on community development, but with where we're supposed to be starting in the first place, which is, the Bible says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And I feel education is always the starting point if you want to transform anything. So our focus now, because it's still a baby organization, is basically education. And we are focusing on educating young girls at the moment, creating an environment for them to just thrive that's mainly because of the inequalities that we have in this country, where the gap between girls and boys or males, females is so great. So our primary focus at the moment is educating young girls and creating an environment for them to just learn and thrive and become a better them. That's
Of
what
course, I
I do
love that
basically.
you're speaking my love language now. And I'm interested. So, where are you focusing on? Like, so are you working with other organizations or the education system? How are you finding the girls that you guys are focusing on?
So at the moment, I'm still looking at collaborating with other organization and the government. But at the moment, it's basically just me and God, basically. So what I did is I wanted to start with girls that are the poorest of the poor from the most underperforming schools, the ones that we view as the most underprivileged. Because I just wanted to prove a point. I wanted to prove that the word of God actually works. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. I just wanted to prove that point. So I went to the Department of Education, Department of Social Development, and said, give me the worst you've got. Give me the most underperforming schools. Give me the ones that are said to be the poorest of the poor, the ones that are thought of to not be going anywhere because they just don't have. And I want those. So they gave me a couple of schools, and because I'm still trying to put together resources, I used
Yes.
what I have, targeted the worst school they gave me, went there, and when I got there, I said I want the 12th grade maths and science class, the most difficult task, because again, I wanted to prove a point. And then they gave me about 10 girls. When I went back the second time, there were six more girls. And yeah, so that's how it started.
This is awesome. So, what a passion project. I'm interested. You got your degree in engineering, you came out of school and started in engineering, then you moved into policy. Okay, so tell us a bit about that leadership journey, because it's not that you went to school to train for what you're doing
No,
necessarily.
I didn't. It's a very funny thing because when I was young, I didn't even think I would go and study engineering. In fact, I didn't want to, and I never wanted to go and study engineering. So it's all been the work of God. Honestly, it's not something that I went and did on my own. Even me going to study engineering was God. I did not apply for it. I was called by the same department I work for now. They were looking for students who had done well in 12th grade. And I happened to be one of those children. They went and targeted me out of schools. I don't know what the criteria was, but I guess it's the criteria that I'm using now, those underprivileged schools. And they came and said, we are taking you to university. This is the university you're going to be going to. We're going to be paying for your fees and everything that you need. I was like, okay. Because my mom was a single mom, it's going to be so much easier for her. And funny thing is, by faith, she'd already packed suitcases for us to go to school because I had a twin sister. I have a twin sister. She'd packed suitcases and put them aside, and she said, "You're going to school. I don't know how. I don't know when." So they came and picked us up, drove us to school, dropped us off at race, and said, all you're responsible for is learning. And then I got my engineering degree, and they said, okay, now we are done with your exams. You've met all the requirements. We're just waiting for graduation, but you can come start working. And we went and started working. And for me, I was like, okay, I'm in public service to do public service. I'm here to serve. And that's where my heart was. I wanted to serve. I didn't know that God would just create this path for it and do everything that I never thought I wanted to do. And I just went in wanting to serve. And I went in saying, in my service, I want to give my best. I want excellence. So in me doing my work that way, the way I would do a design would be different. The way I would maybe go and scope a project would be different. The way I would write a simple report would be different. So that's how I guess I was recognized. Okay, this young girl has got something different. She could be a leader. So it's not something that I think I consciously went into thinking, okay, now I want to go into leadership. It's something that happened because that's where God wanted me to be. And I realized after serving for a few years that God wanted godliness in public service. He wanted leaders that will represent him in public service so that we can better represent and serve the people, his people at the end of the day. So it was very easy for me to go into it. When I started acting as a director, I it was something that I'd been doing even as an engineer. I would work as an engineer and help the director to do his job, basically doing my job and his job. So when that space opened up, it was that easy. Even my colleagues that I had found there, because I was a junior, I found other engineers who were senior to me, and they were like, okay, this guy is leaving, it's obvious. And I'm like, no, guys. And a week later, I get a letter, you are acting as a director. But it was just so natural. And there was just so much that God had already done in me to prepare me, to train me. And just the love for service as well made it so much easier. And when it became a permanent employment, it was just that. So that's what happened. And also I think that I also did not rely on the fact that God called me for this, and I didn't think that it would be that easy. I also had to equip myself. I
Yes.
had to study further and prepare myself because I am not going to be using the word of God to lead, to be a senior manager. It's not going to work. And I cannot just rely on my faith. I have to work as well. So I furthered my studies. I got a master's degree. At some point, I thought I was going into, because when I was appointed as director in the environmental section.
Right.
So seeing that the direction is going there, I went and did my master's in chemical engineering, and it was focused on environmental
Wow.
engineering. Then I was shifted back to what I am good at because it involved engineering services and whatnot, to the directorate that I'm heading now.
Right.
And I saw the tasks that I was given. You're going to help us to write this policy. You're going to help the entire department, not just your directorate, to formulate strategies. And I remember when we got a new head of department, he said, "This is my vision. Go and see how you are going to do that." And I started developing strategies, started influencing policies and all of that. And I thought, okay, I'm not trained for this. It's happening because of the wisdom of God and whatever it is that I have been able to learn, but I need to get some sort of training because I also have to be credible in this thing, in my
Yes.
job. So I went and did an MBA. I got an MBA. And yeah, so that's basically
I
how we
love all
got
this. I
here.
mean, we could take this conversation 50 different ways because there is so much in what you're saying. I want to almost go right back to your mother because you said you grew up in a home with a single mother who
Yes.
obviously, I'm thinking as you're talking about your journey, you're talking about the fact that, okay, God opened this door and I also went and got myself trained and educated so that I could have the skills necessary to do it. So there was also a preparation. It seems to me that your
Yes.
mother, way back then, was preparing even when you said she packed our bags and said, I don't know how you're going to school, but you're going to go to school. I mean, there is something in that alone of saying,
Yes.
I don't know how this is going to happen. Now, is that because girls didn't normally go to school, or why would there have been this sense where your mum said, I packed the bags, I didn't know how it was going to happen?
It was mainly because she just didn't have enough,
Right.
especially considering it's two children going to university at the same time.
Wow.
So imagine the financial burden. It's the fees, the tuition, it's the accommodation, it's the food, it's the books, it's the clothes. For engineering, you have to get drawing boards, it's lab coats, it's all sorts of things. And her, as a single parent, she also had, we have a little sister who was in high school at the time as well. So just that financial burden for her was, it was a lot. And she
Absolutely. But
basically
that
did not have
faith,
enough.
no,
And
oh, totally.
faith,
Yes. That's
the
what it
faith
just
is
is
what did
astounding
it.
to me that she just still believed God. So no
Yes.
wonder then you have such a passion and understand the importance between girls having access to education and then that opening opportunities for life
Yes, yes, yes.
because of your own
I
life. Yeah.
think, yes, as well. What the biggest gift I think my mother has given to me is the gift of giving. I feel like her faith would not have been anything had she not been giving the whole time. I've watched her take from the washing line when we wash our clothes. She would take from the washing line and give to somebody who does not have. If she's got two tomatoes, the neighbor must get one or at least half. So that's how my mother was. When I was growing up, I didn't understand. Yesterday, I had this pink shirt that I loved. Tomorrow, I'm seeing somebody else was wearing it. But I started learning the value of that. And when I started seeing it pay her back through us being taken to school, and she did not have to pay a single cent the whole time. And when I thought of it, I was like, oh, this is what she'd been doing all along. So her faith would not have worked had she not put in the work afterwards. Which is why now, for me, giving is such a gift that I want to give to others. I find any excuse to give. It's become second nature. I want, if there is no reason for me to be giving, I'll make one up and give. So this organization is a platform for me to make up more reasons to give.
It's just beautiful. I love what you're saying on so many levels. So you think that way back then is where you started to develop a heart for service? I mean, you keep talking about your love for the people, you wanting to serve the people,
Yes.
which is so interesting because so many conversations can be around, well, I want to progress in my leadership and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get ahead. Yet you've talked about the need for character and integrity and ethics and virtues
Yes.
and service for people. So, how important would you see the tie between leadership truly being about service or leadership being about you fulfilling your potential?
I think leadership is not, it's not about me, because you cannot lead if there is no one following. So it's more about the ones that you are leading than it is about you. It takes a lot of selflessness to lead, so it becomes zero about yourself and more about the people that you are given the responsibility to lead. So it's that stewardship that allows us to be good leaders. So without us giving up of or dying of selves, we will not be able to lead. I think that is also the issues that we have in governance across the world, that we've got leaders who are out to enrich themselves, and it's more about what can this position do for me than what I can do for who I am given to lead. So it needs to be about the people. It's really not about me at all. I need to, when I'm in my leadership position, I need to forget about me and lead people. And leadership requires a lot of serving. Jesus did that. He served a lot. His whole life was a life of service. Even to the cross, it was for us, not about him, not for the fact that he comes from glory, that he sits on the throne. It was not about that. It was about salvation for us. So our leadership, even today, needs to be about the people and less about us.
Amen. I hope this gets amplified far and wide. You know, it doesn't matter where I travel. We run an anti-trafficking organization we have 21 offices around the world. And it
Mhm.
seems to me that no matter what country I go to, particularly in areas of public service, there appears to be a lot of corruption, and it doesn't matter
Mhm.
what country. I'm
Yes.
wondering, how do you navigate that when you're in senior levels of leadership of public service? And if there's the temptation, in order to advance yourself, you can either cut corners or take bribes or do something that would benefit you as opposed to the people. When you're the director of a department in public service, how do you maintain and how do you foster a culture of integrity and virtue when, in many cases, the only way to get ahead is to compromise and cut corners?
It also goes back to why am I there? I
Right.
have an understanding of why God put me in public service. I think it also starts there. When you know what the purpose is, why are you there? Everything else does not matter, because when you know that it is the purpose of God that I am fulfilling, everything else that comes is just a distraction. And I should not and I cannot focus on that, because I will lose focus on what God wants me to do and the purpose that He wants to fulfill. So keeping my eyes fixed on Him and what
Yeah.
He wants me to do, and again reminding myself of the love that I have for the people, that they need to benefit out of what I am doing more than me. There are people who need to benefit because they don't have any source of income. I am blessed enough to have a source of income, and my source of income comes from serving them. So for me to continue getting that source of income, I need to be honest in serving
Yes.
them. Otherwise, I will lose it as well. So it sometimes it becomes that simple. I'm choosing between right and wrong. I'm going to lose my job. Number one. Number two, it just does not go in line with that purpose that God has set for my life. It always has to be about that, so that I block everything else and I listen to that one voice.
Faith, I'm going to vote for you to be president of most countries in the world, is what I'm thinking right now. You know,
No
I
thanks.
no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I'm very interested because historically and traditionally, I know it's changing, but fields like engineering and even public service in government
Yes.
have been very male dominated fields. Now, I'm wondering,
Yes.
in your area in South Africa, have you often been the only woman, or maybe one of only a few women sitting around tables making decisions? And if so, what has that journey been like?
It's funny because when I started, especially when I started acting, I would find myself in a boardroom as the only woman and also the youngest one in the
Right.
boardroom. So I've had to deal with those things that obviously men with their egos and stuff, they always have something to prove, and you are this little child, you probably don't know what they know, you're probably not as wise as they are, also because of the age difference, you are not as emotionally intelligent as they are. That's the perception of most men, especially in technical fields.
Right.
You are, when you voice something out, especially if you're passionate about it, you're too emotional. You cannot handle yourself in the boardroom. But God has been so good in that I've been able to miraculously hold my own. I surprise myself sometimes, and I find myself commanding a room full of men,
Wow.
and you come out of the boardroom and they're like, are you in public service? Have you worked in the private sector before? I remember there was one time I was presenting in front of the minister, and
Wow.
someone from her office came to me and said, you don't present like someone who's in public service, because the expectation is the standard is low, you don't know what you're saying, you most of the time are probably lying. And he came, he's like, where have you worked before? I'm like, since I left school, I've been in this department. What you hear is something that I've had to teach myself in this department because of the excellence, again, that I wanted to put into public service, encouraging others as well to put in the same effort and the same excellence and just be the biggest man in a boardroom full of men, because again it's also the boldness that God has given me. I grew up a very, very shy person,
Really?
and yes.
I would never think that. Wow.
Yes, my head was always down. I'd be on, every time I had to talk to somebody, every time someone would come to me and say hi, it's always, hello. And my mom would tell people, this is how you tell my twins apart. The shy one is Faith. The one who is not shy and will look you straight in the eye when they're talking to you is Faith. And me being immersed in that environment of being surrounded by men and being in this male dominated industry
Yes.
and having to prove myself, I needed boldness that was just beyond me. I needed the wisdom of God for me to become me now.
Yeah.
That's basically what had to happen.
So I'm interested then, how did that happen? How do you go from a shy girl with your head down? What practical things did you do? Because there'll be so many women and men listening to this that would go, okay, I feel intimidated. I'm much younger than anyone else in the room. I'm the only woman sitting at this table. And my my own personality is not given to confidence and boldness. So
Yes.
how does one go and do that journey to say, okay, what kind of skills do you develop to have courage and strength and boldness in those kinds of environments?
First of all, it's a relationship between a person and God for him to be able to give that boldness. Secondly, I listen a lot, I observe a lot, and after listening and observing, I will go and practice it elsewhere. I remember when I came in, there was a chief engineer who was my supervisor, and I had to learn from. Every time he went to a meeting, I would tag along, listen to how he addresses people. And it's a good thing that he was a man, he was older, and people respected him. I
Right.
think also because of his age and all of that. So I had to listen to how does he address people? How does he answer the difficult questions? Then one day I decide, okay, you are just going to sit and I will do it. And he would sit in the background and just watch me do it, correct whatever needs to be corrected. The next time I tell him, okay, I'm going by myself this time. I'm going to be the one who's holding this briefing. I'm going to hold this meeting. I'm going to explain the work that I did. So that created the boldness to
Wow.
stand in front of people, to speak to people, to address issues. And I think the other blessing that I have is being able to solve complex problems. And I think that's also a gift that I've been given by God, that when people come with difficult issues, it will take seconds and okay, this is what we're going to do, and they do it and it works. So that also you're able to gain that respect, that credibility, and the fact that it's working gives you the confidence to go back, do just a bit more, and when you keep practicing it, it works and it just becomes second nature. I don't remember the last time I was unable to look someone in the eye because I
Wow.
was feeling shy, because now I'm able to stand in front of the highest office in the province and do a presentation. I'm able to stand in front of the minister when the head of department is supposed to be presenting. I'm able to stand there on his behalf. I'm able to stand at national level, even asking for funding and all of that with boldness. And again, I think a few tricks here and there, things that work for you. There are a lot of people who say, imagine people naked and all of that. For me, it's For me, because I also feel the joy of the Lord is my strength. When I need strength, I create joy within myself, and I want to bring it out and create joy within whoever is listening. So I'll crack a little joke and they will laugh. For me, it's me trying to gain my strength
Right.
and we move on.
I love all of this. I'm a bit traumatized over the naked people, but okay, apart from that, have you, how do you go then with addressing conflict? Unless, of course, your province has no conflicts in your public service. I'm sure it's all perfect. There is no issues ever anywhere. But assuming every now and again there's the occasional conflict, how do you deal with that, and how do you confront and um, because that's not an easy thing for everyone to do.
There's a lot of conflict, especially when it comes to what I do. So we do a lot of infrastructure development.
Okay.
So we'll do infrastructure for farmers, and there's a lot of interest. One, because people are just poor, they're just hungry. When you hear there's a contract awarded to somebody and it's this many millions, and because it's all public knowledge, we have the responsibility to share that information with the public. And you get a lot of interests, and there's a lot of people who just want a bite. And there's a lot of fighting just to get a project going. Right here, we're building, for example, a processing facility. It's going to
Right.
serve a few farmers around, and people just want a bite out of what we have given as a contract for the construction, not even to participate in the finished product.
Right.
So you get a lot of community unrest. You get a lot of people asking questions. How did this happen? This one is fighting with that one. You have all organizations within that community fighting just to get in. And I feel the one thing that is important for people to understand is the end goal. If we are able to communicate properly, especially in public service, I think what we fail to do is to communicate the value,
Right.
communicate the end product. What is this vision? What is it that we're trying to build? How does it benefit people? If we're able to communicate that from the beginning, we get buy in from the people. They start owning what is happening from the get go. They start protecting it from external forces as well. The fighting stops and people start coming together, working together. So, the first thing that I do, even before these fights start, because I've learned how they come in before they start, I know this is how I must communicate. This is how I must sell value. This is how I must realize how this particular project is going to benefit everyone, even if it is indirectly, so that people can come together. So I'll invite people to come together, work together, so that this thing works. At the end of the day, it's going to, for example, employ your children that don't have jobs at the moment when it is finished. That is able to improve your life at home. So things like that. If we're able to communicate that, I think we'll solve a lot of problems.
Girl, I'm telling you, you need to run for president. But anyway, I'm fired up. I'm ready to run around this building. Our time is almost up. I just want to ask you a couple of final questions. Obviously, I guess you obviously see the importance of raising up young women through and developing leadership pipelines and pathways for
Yes.
women to move forward. In terms of South Africa, do you think that is a key part of the future, like women coming through and being educated and assuming roles of leadership in the nation?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a study that was done. I don't remember where, that no offense to the men,
Okay.
women women are better leaders than men. I think it comes from the place of understanding that women are nurturing in nature. They're more compassionate. They're more caring. That's just how they're built. It's just how we're built as women. And those are the qualities that one should have within them to lead. Besides everything that we go to school and learn, all the skills that we acquire through leadership, there's just those things that you have for you to be an effective leader. And those are things that women are naturally born with. That's why they make better leaders. And there is so much that has happened that has been so wrong in
Yeah.
this country, that is because our leaders lack compassion, they lack care for the people, they don't have the mindset to nurture and grow people. And even programs, for example, you'll find there's plans that have been developed, and because for 5 years it did not work, we abandon
Yes.
it. And it was a 30-year plan. We abandon it and we are going to start something else. And we'll abandon that one after 5 years because we just don't have that nature to nurture things and care for them until they grow and become something. And that is the character, the skill that women, or that quality that women are born with. And that is what is needed in leadership for us to be able to see things through and have systems that work. We need to be able to nurture people and nurture things that we work with our own hands, things that we think of in our minds. Women in Africa, you'll be told that a woman can multiply rice, a bowl of rice, they can multiply that to 20, 30 people, even to the neighbors. And we need that quality in leadership. We know that resources are shrinking, especially in public service in South Africa. We've seen that if year after year the money that's allocated to departments is going down, resources are shrinking. We need leaders who are able to multiply small things for bigger impact. And that is something that, a quality that women have and they can master better than men. Those are the things that we need in public service in this country.
Faith, I feel like you just gave us a State of the Union. I am like, it's just so powerful. I mean, we could go on, and I want you to come back, and I want to thank you. You are just so inspiring. I'm so grateful there's
Thank
women
you so
of God
much.
like you out there doing what you're doing. So thanks for joining us so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was good to speak to you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'll be back.
You will.
I will be back.
I am so inspired after chatting with Faith. I bet you are too. Now, as usual, her details are listed and tagged in the description of this episode, so you can keep up with her and connect further. And to you, our listeners, I want you to know I love you dearly and I appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us on the Life and Leadership Podcast. Now, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and be sure to share this with a friend you want to encourage today. I can't wait to see you back here next week.
Access more